Have you ever realized that the walls holding you back aren't made of bricks, but of your own thoughts? Imagine living in a cell where the door is wide open, yet you never step outside. That's the reality many of us create every single day. We often think of prisons as places with thick walls, iron bars, and guards watching every movement. But the most dangerous prisons in the world don't look like that at all. They don't exist in distant cities or hidden facilities. They exist inside us, silent, invisible, and self-constructed. The prison of the mind has no official warden, yet it controls millions of lives. It doesn't rely on keys or locks, yet it holds people back for entire lifetimes. And the most remarkable part, it is built not by others, but by the very people living in it. Each of us, knowingly or unknowingly, has the power to either construct or dismantle the prison that limits our freedom, potential, and happiness. Think about it. No one is born afraid, insecure, or doubtful. A child does not second guess whether they should laugh loudly, run freely, or dream big. They just do it. But as life unfolds, tiny experiences, failures, and judgments begin to carve restrictions into the human mind. A harsh comment from a teacher becomes a brick. A rejection in love becomes another. A failed attempt at something important adds yet another. Slowly, we begin to accept these walls as part of our identity. I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or I always fail, become the graffiti on these walls, and without realizing it, the prison takes form. What began as a few passing doubts turns into a fortress of limitations that governs how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. This invisible prison is dangerous because it convinces us it is reality. Unlike a physical prison, where at least we know we're trapped, the prison of the mind is subtle. It whispers, "This is just who you are," and we believe it. It tells us that dream is for others, not for you, and we accept it without question. When we don't apply for that job, when we don't speak up in that meeting, when we don't take that chance in life, it's rarely because of external barriers. Most of the time, it's the invisible walls we've erected within ourselves. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of judgment. They don't just sit in our heads. They become the boundaries of our lives. And here's the painful truth. Most people never push against them to see if they're even real. But how do these walls stay so strong? The answer lies in repetition. Every time we hesitate, every time we give in to doubt, every time we allow fear to dictate our decisions, we reinforce the prison. Our minds, just like muscles, grow stronger in whatever they practice. If you practice courage, courage grows. If you practice fear, fear grows. And when you spend years rehearsing the story of limitation, the walls become so thick that even opportunities standing right in front of you look impossible. The prison doesn't just restrict our actions, it distorts our perception. We don't just feel trapped, we stop even noticing the open doors that were always there. Consider this, there are people who share the same environment, the same resources, even the same setbacks, yet their lives look completely different. One person sees a challenge and says, "I can't," and their prison grows taller. Another sees the same challenge and says, "I'll try," and suddenly their walls crumble. What separates these two people is not fate, luck, or talent. It's the mental environment they live in. One is free even while surrounded by difficulties, while the other is trapped even while surrounded by opportunities. This proves that the prison is not built by circumstances, but by interpretation. It's not what happens to us that defines us, it's the meaning we attach to it. And that meaning becomes the architecture of the invisible prison. The saddest part is that most people become comfortable inside their prison. The walls are familiar, and familiarity feels safe. It's easier to live inside a limited box than to face the uncertainty of stepping outside. After all, freedom requires responsibility, and responsibility requires courage. Many choose the comfort of captivity over the discomfort of growth. They decorate their prison with routines, distractions, and excuses, convincing themselves this is all life has to offer. But deep down, in moments of silence, they know there is more. They feel the quiet yearning for expansion, for freedom, for the life that exists outside those walls. That voice may be faint, but it never truly disappears. It's the reminder that the prison is not permanent, it's a choice. If the prison of the mind is invisible, then how is it built in the first place? The construction doesn't happen overnight. It's not a sudden collapse of freedom, but a slow and subtle process that sneaks up on us. The walls begin to rise the moment we start believing the small lies our fears whisper to us. Every limiting belief, every moment of hesitation, every negative story we tell ourselves, each one becomes a brick. And just like a builder laying stone upon stone, these thoughts accumulate, forming boundaries around what we believe we can and cannot do. What starts as a single "I can't" soon becomes "I never will." And from there, the cell walls begin to tighten. Think back to the first time you felt judged or rejected. Maybe it was at school, when you raised your hand and gave the wrong answer. The laughter of your classmates or the disappointed look from the teacher may have cut deep. In that moment, a seed of doubt was planted. Maybe I'm not smart enough. You didn't realize it then, but you laid the first brick. Years later, you might avoid speaking up in meetings or sharing ideas, not because you lack intelligence, but because the prison wall built from that old memory still towers over you. The irony is clear. The laughter ended years ago, the teacher moved on, but the walls remain because you kept adding to them with every moment of silence, every time you held yourself back. The prison is also built through comparison. In today's world, where every scroll through social media shows someone else's achievements, success, or highlight reel, we unknowingly set new limits on ourselves. Look at what they've done. Look at how far behind I am. Each thought like this places another brick in your wall. Instead of fueling inspiration, comparison chains you to inadequacy. You convince yourself that because someone else is ahead, you must already be too late. But this isn't true. The timeline isn't universal, it's personal. Yet if you continue measuring your life against others, the walls grow taller until you no longer see your own unique path out. Another way we build the prison is by accepting the labels others give us. A parent might call their child shy, and the child carries that label like a lifelong sentence. A boss might say, "You're not leadership material." And suddenly, an entire career trajectory collapses in that employee's mind. These labels act like concrete poured between the bricks of our thoughts, making the prison even harder to break. What's worse is that most of these labels are not even accurate. They are opinions, judgments made in passing, often reflecting the other person's limitations rather than our own truth. And yet, we internalize them, repeating them until they feel like facts carved into stone. The construction of this invisible prison doesn't just happen through negative experiences, it also happens through repetition of comfort. Comfort can be a disguised wall, keeping us from venturing into the unknown. Each time you choose not to apply for that job because you already have a safe one, each time you avoid that workout because the couch feels easier, each time you silence your passion because it feels risky, you strengthen the prison. Over time, comfort transforms into captivity. The scary part is that you don't notice the walls going up. You just wake up one day realizing how small your life has become. And by then, the prison feels so natural you may not even question it. The final layer of this construction is the story you tell yourself about who you are. Human beings are storytellers by nature, and the most powerful story we ever create is the one about ourselves. I'm the kind of person who becomes the script that governs your behavior. Say it enough times and you start to live it. I'm the kind of person who never takes risks, or I'm the kind of person who always plays it safe. These are written laws that form the very architecture of the prison. And because the mind desperately wants consistency, you unconsciously act in ways that reinforce this story, making the walls thicker and higher until they feel unbreakable. The tragedy of the invisible prison is not that it exists, it's that the door has always been open, yet so few recognize it. Most people spend their lives pacing back and forth inside walls they built themselves, never daring to check if escape is possible. They assume that the cell is locked, that freedom is impossible, that change is reserved for others. But the truth is startling. The door to freedom is not sealed, not guarded, not hidden. It's wide open. The challenge is not physical escape, but awareness. You must first realize that the prison is a creation of your mind, and only then can you see the way out. Recognizing the open door begins with a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "Why am I stuck?" you begin to ask, "Am I really stuck, or do I just believe I am?" This single question can shake the foundations of your prison. So many of us confuse belief with reality. We think, "I could never do that," and mistake it for fact. But beliefs are not facts. They are habits of thought, and habits of thought can be changed. Imagine an elephant tied to a wooden post with a thin rope. As a baby, it tried to break free and failed, so it stopped trying. As an adult, it could easily tear down the post, yet it doesn't even attempt. Why? Because the prison exists in its mind, not in the rope. Human beings live in the same way. The door is open, but we never test it. Another clue that the door is open lies in the stories of others who have walked out. Throughout history, countless individuals have broken free from circumstances far worse than ours. People have risen from poverty, from failure, from trauma, and built lives of meaning and greatness. Their secret wasn't that they had no prison, it was that they discovered the prison wasn't real. Nelson Mandela once said, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." Imagine those words coming from a man who spent 27 years in an actual prison. If someone confined behind literal bars can recognize freedom within his mind, what excuse do we have when our bars are made only of thought? Their lives are proof that the door has always been there. We only need the courage to step toward it. Recognizing the open door also means becoming aware of the language you use with yourself. Words are powerful tools, and they can either block the door or open it wider. When you say, "I can't," you reinforce the illusion of a locked cell. When you say, "I choose not to," you reclaim power. The difference is subtle but life-changing. "I can't start a business" makes you a prisoner. "I choose not to start a business" reveals that you have the ability but not the desire. One statement chains you, the other gives you clarity. Language is like a flashlight in a dark room. It reveals whether you're trapped or simply unaware of your options. Change the words, and suddenly the outline of the open door becomes visible. Another way to see the open door is to pay attention to discomfort. Ironically, the unease you feel in your daily life is not a punishment, it's a signal. Discomfort is the whisper of freedom calling you, the frustration of unfulfilled potential, the quiet longing for more, the restlessness you feel in moments of stillness. These are not signs of failure, they are evidence that the door exists. Comfort keeps you inside, but discomfort points the way out. Think of it like a compass. Every time you feel resistance or fear about taking a step forward, it usually means the door is in that direction. Freedom doesn't feel safe at first, it feels terrifying, but that's only because you're standing at the threshold of the open door. Finally, recognizing the open door requires brutal honesty. You have to admit to yourself that the walls were never as solid as you thought. You must confront the excuses that say, "I don't have time," "I don't have resources," or "I don't have talent," and call them what they are, excuses, not truth. The difference between a prisoner and a free person is not ability, it's awareness. The prisoner doesn't see the door, the free person does, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. Awareness cracks the illusion. Suddenly you realize, the only thing keeping me here is me. The door has always been open. It is open now, and it will remain open until the moment you decide to step through it. If the prison of the mind is built by us, then the key to escaping it can never be found outside. It doesn't lie in luck, in rescue, or in someone else changing the conditions of our lives. The key is, and always has been, responsibility. Responsibility is not about blame, it is about power. It's the moment you stop saying, "This is happening to me," and start saying, "This is happening through me, because of me, and I can change it." Responsibility is the act of holding the key in your hand and realizing that the lock was never controlled by anyone else. Freedom begins not when circumstances shift, but when your perspective does. Many people resist responsibility because they confuse it with guilt or shame. They think taking responsibility means punishing themselves, accepting blame, or admitting they are flawed. But responsibility is not about judgment, it's about ownership. When you take responsibility for your choices, your mindset, and your actions, you step into the driver's seat of your own life. Imagine being in a car where someone else holds the steering wheel. You can shout, you can complain, but ultimately you go wherever they take you. That's how most people live, blaming circumstances, society, or other people for their conditions. Responsibility is the moment you grab the wheel. You may not control the road, the weather, or the traffic, but you control how you drive. That shift changes everything. Consider this. When you blame others for your prison, you hand them the keys. If your story is, "I can't succeed because my parents didn't support me," or "I can't change because society makes it too hard," you're essentially saying, "They hold the lock, not me." But the truth is, you built the walls by accepting those stories, and if you built them, you can dismantle them. Responsibility doesn't mean others didn't hurt you or that life wasn't unfair. It means that, unfair as it was, the power to move forward belongs only to you. Waiting for someone else to unlock the door is the surest way to stay trapped. Taking responsibility, on the other hand, is the moment you realize, "I've been holding the key all along." One of the most liberating truths about responsibility is that it transforms failure into fuel. When you don't take responsibility, failure becomes a wall. You hit it and you stop. But when you embrace responsibility, failure becomes a teacher. You ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I adjust?" Instead of saying, "This proves I can't," you say, "This shows me how I can." Responsibility redefines the meaning of every experience. A setback is no longer evidence of weakness but proof of progress. Every mistake becomes a step closer to mastery. And because you own both the mistakes and the lessons, you become unstoppable. No prison wall can stand against someone who transforms every failure into freedom. Taking responsibility also means recognizing the role of daily choices. The prison wasn't built with a single decision. It was built brick by brick, choice by choice. In the same way, freedom is built choice by choice. Responsibility teaches you that even the smallest decision matters. Do you scroll endlessly on your phone, or do you read something that feeds your growth? Do you spend time with people who drain you, or with those who inspire you? Do you keep rehearsing the story of your limits, or do you practice telling yourself a new one? Each choice is either another brick in the wall or another crack in the prison. Responsibility is understanding that your future isn't built by massive leaps but by daily steps, and every step is yours to take. Finally, responsibility frees you from the illusion of control over others. One of the most exhausting prisons people live in is the attempt to control external factors, other people's opinions, behaviors, or approval. Responsibility teaches you to stop wasting energy on what you cannot change and to focus fully on what you can. You cannot control if others love you, but you can control if you love yourself. You cannot control if opportunities come, but you can control whether you prepare for them. You cannot control the length of your life, but you can control its depth and meaning. When you fully embrace this truth, the walls of your prison collapse, because you realize you were never meant to control the outside world. You were meant to master your inner one. And mastery begins with responsibility. When people first realize they are living inside an invisible prison, their first instinct is often to look for a dramatic escape. They imagine a single moment of transformation where everything changes instantly, like breaking through a wall with sheer force. But freedom rarely works that way. The walls that were built brick by brick cannot always be torn down in one swing. Instead, freedom often comes through small, consistent steps that gradually weaken the structure until one day you walk through without resistance. The great mistake is waiting for a perfect moment of courage, when in reality, courage grows only by practicing it in small doses. Think of it like physical training. You don't walk into a gym and immediately lift the heaviest weight on the rack. You begin with something manageable, something that stretches you but doesn't crush you. Over time, your strength grows, and what once felt impossible becomes routine. The same principle applies to escaping the prison of the mind. You don't begin by completely rewriting your life in a day. You begin with one small act that proves to you the walls aren't as solid as they appear. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you'd normally stay silent. Maybe it's reaching out to one new person instead of isolating yourself. Maybe it's saying yes to one opportunity you would normally reject out of fear. Each small step chips away at the illusion of captivity. The beauty of small steps is that they create momentum. Once you prove to yourself that the door moves even slightly, you start to believe it could swing open all the way. Fear loses its power when you realize it cannot stop you from taking action. It might whisper louder, but it cannot paralyze you if you choose movement. Small steps build confidence, and confidence builds bigger steps. Over time, the person who once trembled at the thought of change becomes the person who embraces challenges willingly. The walls that once felt unbreakable begin to crumble under the weight of your repeated action. What seemed impossible yesterday becomes your warm-up tomorrow. There's a powerful truth about freedom. It doesn't arrive suddenly at the end of the journey. It shows up in every step along the way. When you take a small action that defies fear, you are already free in that moment. Freedom isn't just a destination, it's a state of being that grows as you act. The moment you step outside your comfort zone, you have already walked out of the prison, even if only for a few seconds. And those seconds matter. They accumulate. They rewire your brain, teaching it that the prison is not permanent. Each act of courage leaves a crack in the wall, and light always finds its way through cracks. Small steps also protect us from the overwhelm of big change. Imagine telling yourself you have to completely reinvent your life by tomorrow. The weight of that expectation is enough to keep you frozen in place. But if you commit to just one small change today, one phone call, one conversation, one risk taken, the pressure lifts and progress feels achievable. Big transformations are nothing more than a collection of small steps consistently repeated. A river doesn't carve canyons in a day, it shapes them over time with steady persistence. In the same way, your small actions, repeated daily, carve freedom out of the stone of your fears. Most importantly, Small steps remind you that freedom is not about perfection, it's about direction. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to demolish every wall at once. All you need to do is move toward the open door, one step at a time. Each step matters more than you realize because each one rewrites the story you've been telling yourself. Instead of "I can't," your story becomes "I can." Instead of "I'm trapped," your story becomes "I'm moving." And stories shape identity. Slowly, step by step, you stop identifying as a prisoner and begin identifying as someone who is free. And when that identity takes root, no prison can hold you again. Walking out of the prison of the mind is one thing, but staying free is another. Many people experience moments of clarity, bursts of courage, or short periods of change, only to find themselves slowly building the walls back up again. They step outside for a season, but eventually retreat into old habits, fears, and limiting beliefs. True freedom isn't just about breaking out. It's about refusing to rebuild what once confined you. It's about learning to live in a new space where growth, risk, and authenticity become the foundation of your daily life. If you don't protect your freedom, the prison will quietly reconstruct itself around you. Staying free begins with vigilance over your thoughts. The prison was built by repeated beliefs, so if you aren't intentional, those same beliefs will try to return. The voice that says you're not good enough doesn't disappear forever. It grows quieter the more you act against it. But if you stop challenging it, it regains its strength. This is why freedom is a daily discipline, not a one-time event. You must train your mind the way an athlete trains their body, consistently, deliberately, and with patience. Journaling, meditation, or simply questioning your own thoughts can help you spot when the old prison walls are trying to rise again. Every time you confront those thoughts instead of accepting them, you reinforce your freedom. Another key to staying free is surrounding yourself with the right environment. The people you spend time with are either architects of freedom or builders of walls. If you surround yourself with those who constantly complain, criticize, or doubt, you'll find yourself slipping back into captivity. But if you choose to spend time with people who encourage, inspire, and challenge you, they'll remind you daily that the door is open. Environment matters more than most people admit. Even the strongest individual can lose their freedom if they live too long among prisoners who don't believe in escape. Freedom is contagious, but so is captivity. Choose your company wisely. Walking out and staying free also requires a shift in identity. You must stop seeing yourself as the person you were in the prison. If you keep calling yourself shy, weak, or unlucky, you will unconsciously act in ways that rebuild the old walls. Freedom demands that you rewrite your self-image. Begin to declare and embody, "I am courageous, I am resilient, I am capable." These aren't affirmations to trick yourself. They are reminders of the truth you're living into. As your identity evolves, your actions follow. And when your actions align with freedom, the prison loses all power over you. Another essential aspect of staying free is embracing discomfort as a permanent companion. The reason so many people rebuild the prison is that they mistake discomfort for danger. The moment life feels uncertain, they retreat back into safety. But discomfort is not the enemy. It's the signal you're still outside the walls. Growth always feels uneasy because it stretches you beyond what's familiar. If you learn to welcome discomfort instead of avoiding it, you'll stop running back to the prison every time things get hard. True freedom means choosing the unfamiliar path again and again, knowing that each step into discomfort is also a step deeper into liberation. Finally, staying free means living with purpose. Without purpose, freedom feels empty, and emptiness often drives people back to the prison of comfort. Purpose gives meaning to the challenges you face outside the walls. It gives you a reason to keep choosing courage when fear tempts you to retreat. Whether your purpose is to serve others, create something meaningful, or simply live a life of authenticity, it acts as the anchor that holds you steady in freedom. Purpose transforms freedom from a fragile state you must protect into a powerful force you can wield. When you live with purpose, you not only walk out of your own prison, you inspire others to recognize the open door in theirs. My friends, the greatest realization you can ever come to is this: the walls that confine you were never built from stone. They were built from thoughts, fears, and habits, and what is created in the mind can be dissolved in the mind. You are not sentenced to live in that prison forever, unless you choose to be. Every time you take responsibility, you loosen a brick. Every time you question your fears, you weaken the lock. Every time you step into discomfort, you widen the door, and every moment of presence, every act of courage is a step outside into freedom. No one else can walk this path for you. The keys were never in anyone else's pocket. They were in your hands all along. The prison was never permanent. The exit was never locked. So today, I leave you with this: stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for rescue. The prison you built can vanish the moment you decide it no longer serves you. You built the prison, you can walk out, and the world is waiting for you on the other side.